positive discipline, relationship-centered parenting, connecting before correcting is one of the tools that we actually use. It's not like do this and your kids won't go through teen brain development. It's do this and you will foster a space and an environment and a relationship that's going to allow your kids to move through the hard things, to move through the rebellion, to move through the risky behavior, and still have a place to land and still have a place to process and understand themselves better.
Welcome to the Soaring Child Podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm your host, Dana Kay. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child Podcast. Now, I'm actually a little bit selfishly excited for this episode because I am going to learn some great strategies that are going to help me in my parenting journey in parenting my new teen. So this week we're actually exploring tips for connecting with teens, and we haven't discussed it on this podcast at all, and I'm really excited about it. My guest is a facilitator of personal growth and development, and for the last 15 years, her work has encouraged parents to discover the purpose of their journey and provide them with tools and a shift in mindset that has allowed them to deepen their relationships with not only themselves, but their families. Casey is a positive discipline lead trainer and coach. She hosts a podcast, parenting summits, live and online classes, and individual coaching. Her book, Joyful Courage, Calming the Drama. Yes, we know there's all drama. Calming the Drama and Taking Control of Your Parenting Journey was published on May 20th, 2019. Now it's time to welcome Casey to the Soaring Child. Hi, Casey. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, listeners, for showing up and being curious about the conversation that you're going to get to witness between your beautiful host and I. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, you are more than welcome. And I know, like me, you've got two teens. Am I right?
Well, barely. I mean, we're recording right now. My daughter is going to be 20 in just a couple of days.
Wow.
So I do have two teens today, but by the time this goes live, I might only have one. But yeah, my son is 17 and my daughter is days away from 20. So
wow, I can't believe you've got a child that's almost 20. I just can't even imagine the day. Oh my gosh, it must feel unreal.
It is very strange. Yes, it does feel unreal. On one hand, because for me, 20 was yesterday. How can my child be 20? But also just seeing this daughter of mine, and we've been through so much with her. She really took us through the gauntlet and offered us opportunities for our own growth and for me to really walk my talk and to just marinate in how amazing she is as this really self-aware, skilled human being who knows that she can really get through hard things and she can design the life that she wants. And her narrative is not the typical narrative. And, and that was all her. So,
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Look, there are so many different strategies out there. There's the positive parenting, there's the connection before correction, there's, the discipline strategies. So, from your point of view, what's your go-to?
Well, I think it's really twofold, right? So on the surface level, like I am a positive discipline trainer, which means that way back in 2007, my kids were 1 and 4 and I was kind of flailing. I went to a 2-day training that certified me to facilitate classes in positive discipline. And positive discipline is like capital P, capital D. It's a program that was designed by Jane Nelson and Lynn Lott. I was trained to facilitate, certain core activities, all experientially with parents, and not because I was an expert or I knew all the answers, but because I got to create experiences. It was really teaching me to create experiences for parents, for them to come to their own understanding and their own awareness around just what we invite when we show up certain ways, and some tools and opportunities to try some new things on and see how they played out. It was profound for me in my relationships with my 2 young kids at the time. And it also opened up for me the second thing, which is personal growth, right? Because once I had, 1 kid, I declared I will not parent my daughter the way that I was parented. 2 kids, that conditioning just roared right through me, right? And so when I went and became trained in positive discipline, it was also this opportunity to start healing from some of the hurt that I was still carrying around. I'm still healing, right? It's a never ending process, but it was the start of recognizing that there was healing to do. And then also put some things in my back pocket to support me in helping my kids get along with each other and develop without using shame, blame, or humiliation. And so positive discipline is based in Adlerian theory, which, the kind of the core concept being human behavior is motivated by our perception of belonging and significance. So when that's our lens, that's a much different lens than most of us were raised with. Most of us were raised with the idea that we can reward and consequence our kids into doing the right thing. This blows that. This is totally different. It's a completely different mindset, and as I learned to implement more positive discipline, I saw those places. And then the teen years showed up and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I'm finding vape pens and I know that there's some weed smoking going on. And it's like, first, it was very much like, have I been duped? Like, how do I not give consequences here? How am I not laying down the law? And, I reached out to my community and I put on my first online summit. I was like, help me understand how to be who I want to be, right? It felt right for me, this whole belonging significance piece. Like, it felt right. Centering relationship felt right. And it wasn't creating this perfect situation where my kids weren't doing bad things. So I was like, wait a minute. And then, over time learning, positive discipline, relationship-centered parenting, connecting before correcting is one of the tools that we actually use. Is not like, do this and your kids won't go through teen brain development. It's do this and you will foster a space and an environment and a relationship that's going to allow your kids to move through the hard things, to move through the rebellion, to move through the risky behavior, and still have a place to land and still have a place to process and understand themselves better, right? And it takes out, for us, it has really taken out the dynamic of, screw you, mom, look what I can do. And instead, it has created a dynamic where my kids will come to me and say, hey, I need to tell you something. I did this thing and I need to tell you, right? And I mean, like, it would be great if, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, can you guys just keep it on the DL? But at the same time, when I think about the risk taking that I did, I didn't have anyone to process it with. And I kept doing it. My kids, what I've noticed is the risk taking shows up. And then because they have a space to consider it and process it, they tend to move through it and make ever more thoughtful future choices. And as I think about them, Rowan is my daughter, my older daughter is getting ready to move out in the late spring and be on her own. My son is planning on going to college, straight out of high school. And I'm so glad that they've navigated so many things and come to me, and we've had those processing conversations, those curiosity conversations at home, versus like for me, I got to college and I was like, nobody's paying attention. I get to do whatever I want and I'm doing all the things. And it could have, fortunately, nothing life altering happened, but that I was primed for it, like I got lucky with that. So
yeah. No, I love that idea. I do try to have those open conversations with my son. So let's just dive into the parent's role during the teen years. Yeah. Can you expand a little bit more on that? And also, we obviously go into our parenting journey, as you said, in the way that we were parented. And even though we so don't want to, I think every single parent has said to themselves, I do not want to be the same parent as my parent was, but we end up there, don't we? So how do they sort of navigate into this different way of parenting?
Yeah. Well, and it's no fault. Regardless of what, we are the sum of the experiences and the relationships that we've had over our lifetime. And that's just a fact. And I think what, I'm really grateful for about myself is I was ready to do the work of being in awareness. There's the unconscious stuff that we do, which that's when our conditioning comes out. That's when all the things that we swore we'd never do or say show up, right? That's when we're being unconscious. We're not connected to ourselves. That's what I love about Dr. Shefali's work in conscious parenting. When we're paying attention, and we're willing also, because it's a humbling experience. Personal growth is extremely humbling. So it's not only like I got to catch myself before I do this thing that I said I wasn't going to do. It's also, I get to clean things up. I get to make things right after the fact, which also requires me to be like, well, if they wouldn't have said what they said or done what they've done, I wouldn't have to have shown up that way. So we get to recognize that we're not taking any accountability in that conversation. And we get to shift the conversation into, did I show up the way that I wanted to show up? What was the mistake that I made? And I'm going to go own that with my kid, regardless of whether they told us to F off or not. We get to come back and say, I was feeling a lot of anger and I let that really take hold. And then I responded to you out of anger and I was hurtful and I want to own that. And I'm sorry. And you're going to notice in the future that I'm really going to work on paying attention to how I'm feeling. And when I'm feeling out of control like that, I'm going to have to step away because you matter to me that much. Right.
I love that. So listeners, I think that you need to go and grab a pen and paper, press pause, rewind this little bit of episode, because that's actually like such a gold nugget there that you can actually put into practice today, or not even put into practice. It's actually implement today and move forward with that mindset.
Right. Because I think when we're so hard on ourselves anyway, right? And we wake up in the morning and we say, I'm not going to yell at my kids today. I'm going to stay cool, calm, and collected today. And then our kids wake up and bring whatever they're going to bring. And then all of that declaration goes out the window. And then we feel really awful about ourselves. So the thing that I love, and it's it's just the recipe for making amends. We used to call it making it right with the kids. What I love about that is there's room for us to be human, because we're human and we're going to get pissed and we're going to be scared and we're going to be sad and we're going to be worried. We're going to be embarrassed. We're going to have all of those emotions. And sometimes those emotions are going to rule the roost. And so now you all have a tool then. Okay. So when that happens, we get to be honest with ourselves and humble and calm down and make it right.
Yeah, I love that. So, we're heading into the teenage years. How can parents or listeners out there find that peace in that really rough terrain of adolescence? And I can tell you, it is a rough terrain. I mean, we're only, my son's at the time of this filming is only 13. He's still really connected with me and open and honest. I haven't even hit that yet, but I know that there is going to be that rough terrain coming up in our future very soon. So, how can we sort of find that peace?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? And I think that having, there's a couple things. One is, recognizing that it is a both and, like, we can have really good relationship with our kids and they can do the things, right? Yeah. It can get tough. Like, both of those things exist, which, again, I think I kind of said this already. We like to hold in our mind, if we have a really good relationship, then things won't get really hard. But it may be, depending on your kid, all kids are different. Temperaments are different. For some people, I think their kids, the really tough times are early on, and then the teen years feel great. For some parents, it's the teen years. For some parents, it's once their kids leave the house, right? Like, and some parents, it's like, holy shit, is it ever going to get easy? Like, that's all hard, and I just want to honor everybody that's listening, and your personal journey. Finding peace, I think, is a moment by moment experience. I think that the more that we are willing to create our own practices around mindfulness, breath, when we can practice using breath to calm down the sensations of the body, because when we become dysregulated, which teens are great, I mean, they have so much dysregulation, and then our mirror neurons get connected and then we're dysregulated. One of the ways that I love to use to regulate is breath, because I don't have to talk myself out of feeling the way I'm feeling. Instead, it's like this back door, come into the body, slow down your breath, trigger your nervous system into believing that there isn't a bear in the door. Like, that's kind of how we respond, is there's a physical threat. So when we can calm down our bodies, we can calm down our storytelling, and we can show up better, right? So little things like that. And I have alerts on my phone that remind me to just practice that, pull my shoulders back, open my heart, take 3 really deep, long breaths, and practice letting go of whatever I'm thinking about, right? Because when we practice outside of the moment, we're creating those neural pathways so that when we're in the moment, we can teach ourselves to take that pause, right? I said I was going to take a pause when I got angry. I better follow through on what I say I'm going to do. And now I'm angry again. Maybe it's an hour later. Maybe it's the next day. Maybe it's a week later. Okay, I'm going to really take advantage of this practice, and I am going to go calm myself down so that I can come back and be who I need to be for my kid. So I don't know if that's it's a nuanced answer, right? It's a practice. We get to practice. And when you feel like, oh my God, the last few weeks have been so awful and so dysregulated and everybody hates each other, that's a time to pull back and say, how have you been tending to your practice? How have you been inviting peace into your life when it's not the main event, right? When it's a quiet moment. So
no,
yeah.
I really love. Yeah, look, I really agree with you. And, we've had a number of guests on here that really talk about like that nervous system and how our nervous system regulates our children's nervous system. But as they obviously get into the teen years, that detachment, obviously, it gets bigger or gets further away. And so, if we're showing up in that calm, peaceful way, then it does also help them to be calmer and peaceful, and then that environment be calmer and peaceful. Now, I've heard you say before this mantra, fiercely committed, lovingly detached. And so can you just explain to listeners out there, what does that mean, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I did not invent it. I'll say that first. My friend Denise, who's a fellow coach, I hadn't seen her in a few months, and I got to see her, and I said, how are you today? It's so good to see you. She's like, she kind of took a deep breath and looked at me and she said, well, I'm fiercely committed and lovingly detached. And I mean, it was such a mic drop moment. I know she was kind of being funny. She was kind of letting me know where she was. And I was like, oh my God, that is it. That is the mantra. And when we think about parenting teenagers, I mean, it's the compass, right? It's the compass. I'm not a master of fiercely committed and lovingly detached, but it is the direction that my compass is pointed in. And what it means to me is I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up to my work. I'm going to show up for my kids. I'm going to be available, love them, and then I'm also going to let go of what their journey looks like. I'm going to let go of what their journey looks like. And I think parents often hold the either or mindset, right? Like I have to be on, especially around things like school. This is kind of top of mind for us at our house right now. Either I'm totally on their case and driving them to do the things that they need to do to get the grades that I think they need to have, or, I'm just totally hands off. Good luck. Peace out. Right. And fiercely committed, lovingly detached. I am my kid's biggest cheerleader. He knows that I'm available to him. I let him know before I look at the school portal, and which is not often. I'll say, hey, I'm going to check out the portal. I'm talking about with the portal, right? We all know what the portal is. Okay.
Yes.
The portal is a nightmare. The portal gives us too much information. But, I'll say, hey, is there anything I'm going to be surprised by? Right. Or we'll look at it together, but it's rare. And at the end of the day, when we check grades, or it's the end of a quarter, a semester, and there's that freaking C, like, come on, that is not a hard class. I get to zip it. And I get to be lovingly detached. What does that mean for you? And is it what you were hoping for? And what could you do differently next quarter to, get what you want? My son is, he's a junior. He's going to be applying to colleges, and he's really aware that how he looks on paper is going to open or close doors. He knows that. I don't need to tell him that. Right. And I will not sit here and say I don't tell him that. I work really hard not to tell him that. Every once in a while, I think I edge in a little bit of like, well, but the goal is to that lovingly detached. Like I have no doubt that my kid's going to go to college and have a great experience, right? He's not going to Harvard. He's not, there's definitely schools that everybody can go to college, they don't, but not everybody can go to these top like 20% or whatever. I read some statistic about that. I can't remember quite what it was, but everybody can go to college. And I know that he's going to find his way there. And I think it's really important right now to show up, to be available. He knows that there's resources for him. He knows I'm ready to talk or support in school, whatever. He knows that. And I'm not going to get up all in his business, because this is a perfect opportunity for him to be developing the tools that he's actually going to need once he gets to wherever it is that he goes. So that's kind of an example.
I love that. I really, really love that mantra. Definitely going to be using that in our house. And, this conversation has definitely opened my mind. I was doing a group coaching call with the families in my program earlier this week, actually yesterday. And one of the mums was getting super stressed because her son had a really bad week. They hadn't made all the changes yet that we need to make to reduce the inflammation in the body to help those ADHD symptoms. And she was getting really upset, and she had tears in her eyes. And, I said to her, it's okay. He's in grade 3. When he's graduating from college, you're not even going to remember this week. So detach from that outcome. And, this is where he is right now, and that is okay. So I love the way that you explained that. And I think we can apply it to so many aspects of parenting. Even, obviously when they're younger, we need to sort of guide them more. But as they get older into those later teen years, I think that's a really, really good mantra to apply. Now,
obviously you are a number of years ahead of me in your parenting journey. Can you give me some insight? What surprised you during the teen years?
Oh my God. I don't want to traumatize you. For real. I mean, I think what surprised me the most, well, I thought it was going to be a breeze. I thought it was going to be a breeze. I thought we were going to have a lot of fun. My experience of the teen years was a very good time. I was involved in my school. I had a great group of friends. I did a moderate amount of risk taking. I listened basically, begrudgingly to my parents. And I think what's been surprising to me, what surprised me with my oldest is that she completely checked out of the high school experience. And like I was a kid who went to prom and I went to all the dances and I was on leadership and I was just busy in all the places. And she wanted no part of that. And it was like it's a grief process, I mean, she ended up dropping out of school, getting her GED, going to trade school. She's a licensed esthetician. She's now looking at applying to college and wants to go to nursing school. So fiercely committed, lovingly detached. You never know what's going to happen. I definitely didn't see that coming 3 years ago, when I was like, how are you ever going to take care of yourself if you drop out of 11th grade? Right. So that was surprising. And inside of that is my attachment to this narrative of middle school to high school, being involved in the things, doing the high school things, going off to college, like that narrative. I did not see my attachment to it until it was blown up. Right. And even with my son, he's way more traditional. He's much more like me than my daughter is personality wise and temperament wise, but he's also global pandemic was 8th and 9th grade for him of not being in the classroom and watching how that has affected, the kids and their experience of school, their experience of the world and what's possible has been really surprising to me. I think the biggest thing really is you just can't predict how it's going to be. And a huge thing, and I think you kind of highlighted it with your story about your member, everything is temporary. Like the highs last for a while, the lows last for a while, but there's always a swing back. And I think about when my kids were younger and I worked more with younger parents and we talked about things like routine charts. And they're like, well, yeah, I hear parents, well, we made a routine chart and it worked for a while. And I'm like, great. Like, that's the point. We want it to work for a while. And when it stops being useful, you tweak it, you revisit it, you create something new. And I think that's kind of shows up again in the teen years around, just you find a groove and the groove is great. And then there's a breakup. Or there's, a bad grade, or there's, some risk taking, or there's a terrible coach, or, something comes up, or there's just teen brain development, that kind of pulls us back into kind of a dysregulated state, a hard place. But those hard places are where our kids get to develop so many tools. Like if everything's peachy and fine and easy, there's no skill development.
Yeah.
So I think
no growth. There's earlier.
No growth. And I know, specifically for people that listen to your show, I'm sure that it feels like, but does it have to be this hard? Right. So I want to honor that and the work that parents who have kids that have been diagnosed with ADHD, the work that you do, the managing that you do around food, around those 504 plans, those IEPs. Like I didn't have that. I had other shit go down, but fiercely committed, lovingly detached, and know that time is going by. I know some days feel like it's super slow. Some days feel super fast, but you're moving forward and you're getting to a place where eventually, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Your kids will leave you. It used to drive me crazy when little old ladies would be like, oh, savor every moment. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? This is going kind of slow. I'd rather it went a little bit more.
I'm happy for them to like walk out of that, move out and
yes. But now, I mean, there was not too long ago where I was like, when are you moving out with my daughter? And now it's like, she is one of my very best friends. And it makes me so sad to think that she's going to move out and I'm not going to see her every day. And, be the first person, that she sees when she walks out of her room and is all tousled from her bed. But that's okay too, because that's what it's about. We'll get to move into a whole nother way of being together and in relationship. Yeah.
Look, I've just absolutely loved talking with you, Casey. I'm excited actually now for the teenage years rather than terrified or petrified. Interestingly, you said something earlier and you said that, you thought that the teenage years were going to be easy and a breeze. I always had that idea in my mind as well. I'm like, I'm doing the hard yards when my son and my other son are young, like boys. They've got bounds amounts of energy and testosterone and all of that. I'm like, I've got the boys when they're younger, they're harder. I'm going to breeze through teenage years. But then I started to hear as I got closer, all of these little things that, oh my gosh, the teenage years. And so I've actually become terrified and petrified. But after this conversation today, I actually am excited for it. And I'm actually going to go forward with a whole new approach. So thank you. Thank you for doing that for me. And I'm sure you have helped a lot of listeners out there as well. I appreciate you coming on today and joining me and sharing your knowledge and your experience, not only professionally, but also personally with all of our listeners. So can you tell our listeners where they can find and follow you online?
Absolutely. So I am one of 3 founders of a company called Sproutable, and you can find us at besproutable.com. To get to the teen section, it's besproutable.com/teens. I have a podcast, which you can listen to wherever you're listening to this show. It's called Joyful Courage. You can find me on Instagram at joyful_courage. And I have a group on Facebook called Joyful Courage for Parents of Teens. And those are the good places to find me. But yeah, I do coaching and I have a membership as well. And the podcast comes out. I have interviews, which I'll be having an interview with you come out soon. And on Mondays, and then on Thursdays are solo shows where I just kind of take the mic.
Yep. Take that mic. Take that
the mic.
Yeah.
Definitely. And speak into it. So any of those places, I'd be happy to connect with your listeners. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Casey, once again for joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kate, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at ADHDthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.